I'm so thrilled to see everybody here today in such short notice for such a memorable event. My name's Barbara McGillicuddy, and I chair the City of Titusville's Flag and Memorial Committee. And along with a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of calling, we're here to honor World War II veteran Steve Negrey. God bless him. In addition, we are here to also pay homage and honor the Cipoletti family, because without George Cipoletti's let's put it this way, push to have a monument placed in this park, we wouldn't be standing here today doing an unveiling for this lovely gentleman, Mr. Negrey. So right now, I'm going to introduce and call up our city manager, Scott Lurie.
Thanks, Barbara. Hey, before we get started here, I'm going to do a little bit of audience participation. I'm going to start. I would like to recognize all the veterans from the different eras that are here. And what I'd like to do is, when I call out your era, stand up and say what you did and what service you served in, because I think that's important today. Desert Storm, I'm probably about the only one here. I'm going to get to you, ma'am. I'm Scott Lurie. I'm an Army Apache helicopter pilot, and I retired as a colonel.
Yay! Wonderful.
Vietnam era. Sir.
I was an aviation ordnanceman, did 3.5 tours to Vietnam.
Outstanding.
Then I was sergeant.
Thank you, sir.
I was in the Air Force, 986 Security Squadron, Eielson Air Force Base, Alaska, interesting duty. I was in RC-135.
Outstanding. Sir? Thanks, sir. Vietnam, yes, sir.
J.D. Kump, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, Public Affairs Officer, served in Thailand, the Philippines, and Germany. Currently on the board of the American Military Retirees Association and the organizing committee for the Space Coast Military Appreciation Day next Saturday, the 2nd of May.
2nd of May.
All right. Okay, so we're missing some Marine Corps folks. I need some Marines. Vietnam, yes, sir.
Tom Northcutt, United States Marine Corps, 1960 to 66, and I didn't retire out of service, but I retired at 48 years as an iron worker.
Outstanding. All right. There's my Marine Corps. All right. Yes, sir.
I got blown up in 1960, trained for Vietnam, and I never got there.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for the service. Yes, sir.
Standing next.
Yes, sir.
Give your name and what you did.
What service, sir? What service?
Marine Corps.
Another Marine. All right. Yeah, all right. Yes, sir. All right. Outstanding. Yes, sir. All right. Outstanding. Any more Vietnam veterans? Yes, sir.
War, Cold War, 69 to 94, United States Navy, submarine force, Benjamin Franklin 640 boat, 634 boat, Stonewall Jackson, was a missile tech. I retired as a lieutenant from the Navy, intelligence.
All right. Outstanding. Outstanding. All right, any Korean War veterans here? Korea. Yes, sir.
O.J. Hoffman, started in 1950 when the Korean War started, down to 53, served on a B-25 bomber.
Outstanding. Any more Korea? Sir? All three wars. Okay. I'll get you right at the end. How about World War II? Yes, sir. All right. Hooah. Yes, sir, that's plenty. Thank you very much for your service. Yes, sir.
Mr. Remy,
Got a three war veteran here.
God bless you.
Yeah, I don't know too much about World War II because I was young. I got my wings as a B-29 flight engineer, and then the Sullivan brothers went down with the 5 boys and lost all their lives. So my brother was in the 4th Marine Division in the Pacific, and I told the sergeant, I said, Sergeant, I want to go there in Pacific. And he said, what the hell do I go there now? God-forsaken place for him. I said, well, my brother's over there, and I want to go kick ass too.
All right.
Right.
Anyway, he told me, "Take your grass out here, you ain't going nowhere."
Aw.
All right.
The Sullivan brothers had died, and they put the thing in effect that the old surviving sons would not go overseas. So then I went home, and the next thing I knew, they called me back to duty during Korea. I got to go over to Japan. I had the Material Defense Assistance Program unit over there. I was first sergeant of the material group there, and personnel sergeant major of the group. And we sent people to Korea to teach the Koreans how to maintain our equipment. So after that, then I came back to the States, and I was stationed in Cheyenne, Wyoming for about 6 years with SAC up there with Atlas missile. And personnel worked up there, and then I went to ABC headquarters and Officer Assignment Division, AC headquarters. And I sent a lot of young pilots out of the US of A. Hope any of them are out here. But I sent them over to Vietnam, and I get thank yous when they came back because I sent them to Kendall Air Force Base in Florida.
There you go.
I take care of my buddies. So
All right.
I retired in 1970 from the one Air Force made, and I have 27 years service, 20 of them active, and 7 of them in the reserve.
Outstanding.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your service.
Thank you.
Sir?
My name is Jack Freeman. I served in the Naval Academy in South Pacific. Governor allowed us 2 million to make. And we put troops ashore like this. That's going to be landing troops for several hours.
Thank you for your service, sir. Okay, how many spouses, relatives, children of veterans are here? Please stand to be recognized. My wife is in Alabama right now. She's a 32-year veteran with me. So, thank you, ma'am. Okay, on behalf of Mayor Tolley, our city council, and the whole city of Titusville, I welcome you here. We've got our vice mayor back here, Walt Johnson, Councilmember Behringer, who are attending today. And I really appreciate you all coming out on such short notice to honor a 93-year-old veteran here today. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Bob Sox, who's going to take us through the rest of the ceremony. Thank you, Bob.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. What a beautiful day, and what a great honor to see you, Steve, and to meet a great American hero. It's just incredible. So we got a long history here at this Veterans Park. We had a dream about this park back in the late 80s, and a young man came to town named Ron Cheek, and he was a mover and a shaker, and he made things happen. Got together a bunch of folks, some of which are here today, and we started fundraising, and we raised every weekend. We went out and raised money to try to build this park. And on the 4th of July of 1991, we had our inaugural ceremonies. It was a great, incredible day, and turned the park over to the city, and that is why we are here today, and we're very pleased with the way the park has matured. There were no trees, it was barren, and look what almost 30 years has done. It's a beautiful park, and focus of the veterans here in the city of Titusville with our Veterans Day and our Memorial Day and our military funerals and wedding once in a while, and a great view on the Indian River and so forth. So welcome everybody, it's great to have you here. At this time, let me welcome Mr. John Cipoletti, who is the son of George Cipoletti, who George, of course, was one of our founders, and he was the designer of the Leopoldville Memorial, which we'll see in just a few minutes. So, John, please step forward. Thank you.
Well, it was nice to be asked to come up and tell everybody about what my dad did and what he went through, and hopefully it's something Mr. Negrey can relate to as well. So I just want to tell you and summarize what my dad's words were, and I'd like to encourage all of you who are veterans. What my dad did was he wrote a book towards the end of his time, and he captured all of his memories, and then he wrote them down and sent them out, and my wife was able to make a book out of it, because you can do that thing these days, just send them online. And so we have a remembrance of everything that he went through that we're able to give to my brothers, sister, and then all of our children. So they all know what Dad went through. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of that story today. It's very long. I mean, he didn't really shorten it. It's about 40 pages. But let's just look at that one night. My dad was in the 66th. 262 Anti-Tank Division, and on the day of Christmas Eve, he was on leave because nobody knew that they were going to be called up that evening, so he was in Scotland. He came back from Scotland on leave to go to a party. On the way to the party, they tagged him and his buddy who were together and said, "You're not going to a party, you're getting on a ship." So they went down, got all their gear, got all their battle dress together, and headed down to the dock. When they got to the dock, I'm sure all you veterans would be very surprised to find out there was a lot of confusion. So in the process of getting together, my dad and his buddy ended up on the wrong ship. And they're in the line, and when they got close to getting on, they said, "Well, you're supposed to be over on the other troop ship." And they said, "Well, we'll work it out when we go over to Cherbourg. There's certain to be enough confusion over there to get linked back up with everybody else." So they stayed on the ship. Turns out to be the Leopoldville. I don't know if that was a great decision, but they stayed. And when they got in, everybody was pretty worn out. It was Christmas Eve. A lot of people were on leave. A lot of people had been, out to the various families in England who supported them, and they all were just herded on there. So many just wanted to go to their bunk and retire and lay down. Well, when my dad and his buddy John got down there was no bunk for them because they weren't supposed to be on the ship. So they stayed down in the hold for a while, and it was really uncomfortable, so they went up on deck. And that was really a fateful decision. When he was up on the deck, 2 decks up, he saw the torpedo come in. And the torpedo went right into the hold where he was staying. So he and his buddy, John, and the sergeant who came up to kick their butt for being on deck when they weren't supposed to, were some of the few survivors. 18 people survived of the 200 or so men who were in that hold. So that was a pretty fateful decision. It didn't get much better from there. The crew of the Leopoldville took all the lifeboats and left. And so all of the men were on deck, as they were told to, lined up. My dad said very orderly, very calm, waiting for the order to get off the ship in full battle dress. The order to abandon ship didn't come because the destroyers that were their escort were busy running off chasing the submarine. So there was no place to go. There were no lifeboats. The ones that were left were tangled in lines so nobody could use them. There was no ship to get to. So your choice was to stand and wait, or jump into the English Channel, which was a little bit chilly on Christmas Eve. So they stood in order, waiting for the order to abandon ship. Finally, some of the destroyers came back, and the order was given to abandon ship. Of course, if any of you have been on a cruise ship, this was not a big cruise ship, but that's what the Leopoldville was. It was a retrofitted cruise ship. The deck height between a cruise ship and an English destroyer, the difference was about 25, 30 feet when the seas were calm. So what these gentlemen had to do, given the seas were not calm, they had to wait for the waves to come in, raise the destroyer up to a height that they could jump, and time the jump from Leopoldville over to the destroyer. Many of them didn't make it. Many of them ended in the ocean. Many of them ended up being crushed between the 2 ships. But my dad and his buddy John made it over. They did make the jump. They were able to, and I understand Mr. Negrey also made the same jump to the Brilliant. And the British soldiers there gathered them up and took care of them medically, and then made sure they got over to Cherbourg Harbor safely from then on. What was interesting is that group, the 66th, was reinforcement for the Battle of the Bulge. They were headed for where the Germans mainly had hit in that battle. And so no one wanted the Germans to know that that ship was sunk. So there was a gag order put on the sinking of the Leopoldville. Not even the people in England who had seen them off knew the ship had been sunk. And when they got to France after that, they were all told that they could not say anything, and from that point on, all of their mail home was censored to make sure that they had never said anything about the Leopoldville. When they left the service, my dad told me that they had to sign a note saying that they would never tell about the Leopoldville until it was officially sanctioned that they could, and they, in his book, he says they threatened their GI benefits, that if they had revealed it, that they would lose their pensions. So most of the people who were on that never said a word except to their families. Then I guess, I'm not going to get the date right, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, people started to be allowed to talk about it. Discovery Channel did a nice documentary on it. And then people started talking more, and my dad started, as was said before by Bob and Barbara, really got to burn his saddle to get this monument here. And so that's a brief story. And just from the other side, from the parents' story, my grandmother and grandfather were asleep that night. They just turned off, they owned a store, they turned off the neon light outside the store, turned off the light in the room. And they're sitting there, and all of a sudden, about an hour or so later, my grandmother wakes up and says, "What's the light?" My grandfather looks up, it's a bright light in the room, and they're going, "What's going on? I thought I turned off the store's lights." They got up to look, and to this day, well, not until they passed, they both would swear that my dad's picture that they took of him before he went off to fight was glowing. And so my grandmother rose up and said, "Mark the calendar, something happened to George." And after a little while, the glowing stopped, and my grandmother calmed down, and she said, "He's all right." Don't know why, but they just put it away. And when my dad came home from the war years later, they still had the calendar there, and they go, he said, "Why do you have that date marked?" And my grandmother told him, "Something happened to you that night, but we knew you were all right." And thank you.
At this time, I would like to call up author Mark Cubbage, who is writing a book called The Faces of Freedom. And I'll let him explain a little bit about this, but he found Mr. Negrey, and he accompanied Mr. Negrey down here. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. Mark, come talk to us a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, again for being here on behalf of Mr. Negrey, Mr. Cipoletti, the family, all those who perished Christmas Eve. And I just wanted to share briefly the book I've been working on the last 9 months. Basically documents veterans who served from World War II all the way through present day. So we've got Vietnam, Korea, the Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan. And I photograph and interview them for the book. And I'm happy just to share real quick the portrait I took of Mr. Negrey, who is posing with actually a flare parachute from a tripwire after they made it from Leopoldville into France. And it was signed by the surviving members of the Panther Patrol, who he served the rest of the war with there in France. And I just want to take a minute to show everyone that. And by the way, Mr. Negrey was kind enough to sign the print for the gallery when the book comes out. This is the portrait. Again, just thank you, and it's a great honor and privilege. I'm glad you mentioned the importance of book writing. We can't ever forget that what we enjoy today is not free, and if it were not for the men and women who raised their right hand to serve this nation, we wouldn't be here. So we thank you all. Scott, you're going to come back up. Thank you, sir.
If I could have our vice mayor and council member come up, we've got a couple presentations to do. Sir, if you hold this. Mr. Guard, could you come up, please? Yes, sir.
Anywhere you'd like.
Yes, sir. Why don't you turn around there and get the two council members, and I'll read the certificate here. The City of Titusville presents this certificate of appreciation to PFC Negrey. Sir.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you very much. I was glad to serve. I'm thankful to God I made it. It was a struggle, but I'm thankful that I am right here, and I'm thankful to all you people to be here watching me. Thank you very much. A little more.
Yes, sir. Mr. Negrey, you're.
Yeah, I was
Been
going
in
to tell
politics, sir? You grab that
no
microphone
politics.
just right.
He happened to mention that his dad was lucky that he did not get down in that where he was supposed to be, because I understand there was a mistake made. Our company that I was in was supposed to go to the berth where they were in. So now somebody along the way helped us and told us we're not going there, and we survived the battle of that bulge. I mean the battle of that ship that got torpedoed. So I can be thankful for that. And I thank you people again for showing up. You all look wonderful and great. Even though we're old and unable, but we're fine. Thank you so much.
Mr. Negrey, it is an honor and a privilege to unveil before you the replica, the monument of the USS Leopoldville. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. I'm coming in behind you. Thank you. At this time, I just have a couple of announcements to make. Mr. Kump did talk to us briefly about the Military Appreciation Day. This will be at Searstown Mall, May 2nd. Okay, so y'all come down and appreciate the military. I also want to make available the date, October 24th. The second annual Veterans Appreciation Parade, thank you God, will be marching down US 1 from Titusville High School up to Broad Street. So please, my friend Joe, back here in the back, if you need any information or you want to know more about it or how to be in it and participate, please see Joe, and we will look forward to seeing you then. I think it would be appropriate to close this ceremony with a prayer. Could you please bow your heads? Gracious Creator God, we come before you with humble hearts, full of love for the dedication of our service personnel. We thank you that we have the freedom in this country to gather and to honor people as we have Mr. Negrey today with this monument of the USS Leopold. We ask your special blessing upon Mr. Negrey and the Cipoletti family and all of our veterans and military personnel here and abroad. We ask for good health, protection, and it is with our deep gratitude that together on their behalf, we all say a big amen. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we'll see you on Memorial Day.